Back here at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, Chris Brown, Steve Tasker, One Bills Live, and pleased to be joined now by CBS Sports Draft Analyst. Sometimes fills in here on this very show. One Chris Trapasso joining us. Good to have you, Chris. How you been? You're all settled in here for the week that is here in Indy?
Yeah, all settled in, and it's just an honor to be part of the show with you guys. Have Tom Telesco, Western New Yorker. You have Charles Davis. It's an honor to be part of the show here in Indy.
Yeah, we're going to be busy this week, and we're kind of the whole media world for the NFL is here, and like you, and we got a bunch of people who come on the show, have been guests on the show. You've been a co-host on the show, so we kind of touch base with all of them, and we're busy.
Yeah,
we're busy.
What I know you gave us kind of a list of guys that you've kind of taken a long look at in terms of prospects in the draft, and we should probably start with the position that I think Bills fans are literally obsessed with at this point, which is the receiver position. Not a class that's necessarily got a lot of alpha males like the past couple of years, but there's some guys that can help some teams. I know a guy that a lot of Bills fans spit out immediately is the Boston College kid, Zay Flowers. Small, you would argue maybe even a little undersized. I know he's been working really hard at his training facility to pack on lean muscle mass. I guess he's up to 182 now, but that was up from like 172, and he's only like 5'9". But tell us why he could be an exception to the rule being undersized.
Because I think he plays bigger than that in those famous contested catch situations that you certainly need to have, even if you're a big receiver. And if you're 5'9" and you're playing in the 170s, you can't just be someone that's going to make defenders miss. You have to be able to win down the football field with more than just your speed. And to your earlier point, the fact that there's not a Jamar Chase or even a Garrett Wilson in this class, that bodes well for the Bills. Picking in the late 20s, they could maybe get the second or third wide receiver off the board. It feels like round 2 and round 3. We've seen it in the past with DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown. Terry McLaurin was a third-round pick. That is where the real meat of this wide receiver class is in terms of overall talent.
One of the guys that struck me when I watched was the guy from Tennessee, Jalin Hyatt.
Flies.
He's a different kind of athlete. What are his strengths and weaknesses? What are your projections about him? Because he's certainly, I think, far enough down the list that he's going to be available at some pick for the Bills. We'll see. Where do you think it might be?
Yeah, and that's a good point to bring him up because yesterday Brandon Beane talked about just adding playmakers to the offense and hitting those splash plays. He even spoke directly about we like our ability to move the football down the field 7, 8, 9, 10 play drives, but we know you're not going to always be able to do that hitting those big plays. You watch Jalin Hyatt's film, even the highlights or individual games, that's all he was doing at Tennessee. He is a vertical, probably low 4.3 guys, maybe even high 4.2 type of player. I think he's decently twitchy. He's pretty quick. Just wasn't asked to run a wide variety of routes in kind of that wide open system at Tennessee last year. But for as much as I think the Bills need that run after the catch type, that Deebo Samuel type player to their offense, you add someone that can really stretch those safeties down the field to this attack, and I think underneath there's a lot more space for Josh Allen and all of these wide receivers to operate.
I had a monster game against Alabama this year.
5 TDs.
That's going to get you noticed.
For
sure.
That's the film you put on your YouTube.
Right and it's there. Don't worry. It's up there in multiple places. The one guy that interested me, he kind of strikes me as a blue-collar guy, Jaden Reed from Michigan State, physical player, doesn't mind dishing out punishment to get extra yards. He welcomes contact. I just kind of see the way he plays, and I always think in my head like Bills DNA that Beane and McDermott look for. He seems to fit at least that part of the dynamic and what they look for in a player.
Yeah, definitely, and he was awesome at the Senior Bowl. And throughout this Beane and McDermott era, they've talked about how
they take Senior Bowl guys.
And just yesterday, Brandon Beane said, we love the Senior Bowl, the intimacy of it. They've taken a lot of players from there. Speaking about Zay Flowers being good in those contested catch situations, Jaden Reed's even better. He's a little bit bigger, like right around 5'11", 190 pounds. He actually reminds me, just in terms of his whole profile, of Stephon Diggs. That Diggs was a 5th-round pick, had a really good junior or sophomore season, not quite as good as a junior. That's Jaden Reed. Route running ability, the nuance, Steve, you got to be able to not just be athletic, but use shoulder fakes and head fakes and beating press at the line. Jaden Reed, maybe late day 2, early day 3, I think would be very good to learn behind Stephon Diggs early in his career.
Yeah, one of the things about Jaden Reed is, you always hear him talk about this, but it really is a thing. The guy's a competitor.
Very much so.
He's a feisty, gritty guy who likes to run after the catch. Got some skills after he catches the football. You're right. He might be a possession guy because of where he's going to get drafted and all that, but his, I don't know what you call it, his competitive nature shines through. And football scouts, they love that stuff. They love that stuff.
Jaxon Smith-Njigba is a player that I think most Bills fans are familiar with just because he plays at such a high-profile school in Ohio State, but we didn't see much of him this year because he only played 2 games due to the injury. Another guy that's a little bit smaller, but I don't know if there's a receiver that works the middle of the field better than this kid. And the middle of the field is where you could argue the passing game was kind of lacking a little bit for the Bills last year. So he would look to be a fit there, but you wonder, does the injury history push him down far enough where the Bills even get a look at him?
I think so. I think had he played this past season with C.J. Stroud in that offense, we would be saying, let's not even talk about him because he's going to be a top 20 selection, top 15 most likely. I don't think he's a big-time athlete, and that's why I think beyond his injury history, he got hurt against Notre Dame and never really played again, why we're not hearing a lot more momentum, him being so far removed from that injury. But you're right. After the catch, he glides. He has awesome contact balance for being a little bit of a skinnier wide receiver. In the late 20s, if he was there and a lot of the other positions are off the board that the Bills like, that would be maybe not a high upside pick, but then you throw him in where he's not the number 1, he's the number 2, and he has Josh Allen throwing him the football. He can be really good right away, a very high floor wide receiver.
Yeah. And then, of course, LSU has another kid coming out this year. They've got a little string going.
Yeah.
Keyshawn Boutte. Tell us about him.
He reminds me a lot of Juju Smith-Schuster, that he's right around 6 foot, 6'1", around 200 pounds, and does everything well. He's not going to excel down the field. He's not going to probably run crazy fast. He's not going to have a 40-inch vertical. But Juju Smith-Schuster has carved out a pretty nice career in Pittsburgh and Kansas City, just doing all the little things well. I think he's good enough after the catch. There's maybe some off-the-field stuff that could push him into day 2 where going into this past season, everyone thought Boutte would maybe be the first receiver off the board. So, again, we're kind of sensing a theme here that it's really round 2 for all different reasons why a lot of these top-tier wide receivers are going to be available.
One guy that kind of slipped under the radar initially for me and that I've only kind of been watching of late is the Parker Washington kid from Penn State. The thing that after, kind of watching him and reading up on him a little bit, the thing that sticks out about his skill set for me is his hands and his ability to catch the ball even outside his body frame because he's not a huge dude, very athletic and going up and competing for the football. I'm just reminded of the Bills were second in the league in drop passes last year. And so a guy with hands like this could be attractive for them. The question is, where does he come off? Is he late day 2? Is he mid day 2? Or is he even day 3? Because he only had 2 touchdowns last year. He had like 600 yards. Like, he wasn't this stat behemoth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it'll all depend on how he runs. Could he run even in the high 4 or 5s? If he does that, he could be available in the 4th round. He doesn't seem like a speed guy, but like you mentioned, he catches everything outside of his frame. Go watch the Ohio State game. You see the entire gamut with Parker Washington. Contact balance of a running back, powerful, and made a lot of difficult catches outside his frame, extended, taking a hit, not dropping the football. So I think those are things over the last 2 years that the Bills probably will prioritize a little more. How well you are running after, or how good you are running after the catch, and how sure your hands are. And I think Parker Washington checks both of those boxes.
He might not be as tall or as long as Deebo Samuel, but he's like one of those guys who's closest in body type in terms of getting yards after the catch, fighting through contact kind of thing.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel, who did test pretty well. He wasn't a low 4.4 guy. No one expected that out of South Carolina. Parker Washington reminds me most of DJ Moore, who's kind of criminally underrated with the Panthers. Coming out of Maryland, that was the game with him. It was he's not going to run past people at the next level, but he will bounce off linebackers. He will make every catch, slants, RPOs. That's where Parker Washington really thrives. So, again, talked about 5 or 6 receivers. These are all guys I truly really like as just an overall evaluator that will probably be there after the Bills pick in the first round. They could go offensive line, maybe safety, maybe linebacker in the first round, and still get not just someone that's a developmental type, but a true contributor early in his career.
Yeah, and we're gonna be talking about all these other position groups as the week goes on as well. But thanks for being here with us. The wide receivers are kind of a hot button for at this point. Now we've got a long way to go through free agency and all that, but still.
Yeah, we'll have you on later on in the week. We'll hit some other positions of need
For
that the Bills have and race through a few more guys. But thanks for being here, Chris. We'll catch up with you later in the week.
Thanks.
That's Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports draft analyst, joining us. He'll be back later in the week for more